Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Today we're joined by our friend Roger. He went onto our website recently and he filled out a form feature that we have now to encourage you guys to get on the podcast and chat with us and give us feedback and questions and that sort of thing. So we're very thankful that he's able to join us. So Roger, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and give us an idea of what you're about and what you're interested in.
My name is Roger Klosterman, and I am a guitarist, composer. I've been playing the guitar for 50 years. I've released 2 CDs. My music's been heard on 6 continents and 35 countries. And the name of my 2 CDs, my first CD is Anthesis, which is a very cosmic word. It means it's Greek for the opening up of a flower, the transitions of the opening up of the flower. My second CD, Ekpyrotic, is also a Greek word, and that means the all-engulfing cosmic fire. So I'm very much into metaphysics and understanding the mechanics, the architecture, the blueprint, and how the universe works.
Right. Awesome. Well,
that's awesome. Why I listened to you guys via a Santos Bonacci interview, and I liked your name, Psycosmos.
Oh, thank you.
Because that's what I'm all about. Because to me, the way it is psychology. It is the way it's mental. It's the way the mind works.
Right, definitely. Well, we're a big fan of mentalism here, especially our friend Matt. He's very much into the your attitude and your mindset really does generate and manifest things for you in this world. So
yeah, that's true. I think there are some interference patterns. There's a lot of interference because to me, everything is energy. Everything is vibration. Everything is frequency. I know that sounds like an oversimplification, but think of airwaves, radio waves, water wave, electrical wave. That's another word for that is current. It's energy. And those things can be redirected. They can be channeled, blocked. But I agree with it. But there are interference problems. I think it's very important to realize that.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of energy and not all of it good that can mess with your, I guess you could call it your array and your ability to receive and tap into these different frequencies.
Exactly. The waterways are polluted. So there's all kinds of things that can clog the transmission of that energy. It's going on all over the place. There's a lot of evil in the world today. There's a lot. I know there's many people think that the world is, and people are waking up, and there's probably some truth to that, but in my humble opinion, we got a long, long way to go. I mean, just look around the world today. I think everything's amping up to some degree. The awakening and awareness is amping up for people who are in tune with that. And I like that word. It's a musical word, but it's also amping up for people who aren't. It's like people are disintegrating, literally, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. People are falling apart.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's a lot of forces from a lot of different fronts, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. But ultimately, there's really only one force. I think there's only one energy, and that's consciousness. And what we call the different forces, which are real, those are different scales and degrees of the same energy.
Right. It's like how
that's
everything is a rate of motion.
Right.
Everything that you see is just really, if you think about it, a trick of light moving at a specific frequency in a specific place. It's really.
I agree with that. So, do you think it's you guys think the universe is a hologram?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was pretty much sold on that when I read through the report from the Army on the Gateway experience. The way they laid it out in that report was I had to stop and just like stare at a wall a few times reading that because you grasp what exactly it entails and the gravity of what this report is saying and how casually they talk about it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of am on board with that. I think there is a danger there because everything to me in this universe that is creation, everything that is matter, which consciousness is kind of entails all that. But I think with viewing the world as a hologram, this world's dualistic. It's dualistic, everything. It's a two-edged sword. And with a hologram, there's a danger of us seeing people, especially as just objects on a screen. I think there's it's just something to be aware of because we're so brainwashed by TV and we just see, and people are just objects. They're just objects on a screen. It's just something to be aware of.
It's funny you say that because I think that's one end of, so it seems to me that that's the end of not putting enough importance in this physical world, saying this doesn't really mean anything because it's all just a hologram. And then if you take that to its extension, then you can do anything you want. But then I feel like that's the other end of what a lot of people suffer with today, especially younger people in our generation and the people that are getting brought up, is too much importance being put on this physical plane. Whereas this is the be-all, end-all. Everything you see and you can touch and you can feel, that is the ultimate meaning. So it's this is the here and now, and there's nothing beyond this or before this or after this. It's just this. And I think so. It's like it's a double-edged sword, like you said. I feel like those are the two extremes that seems like people are struggling with now.
Yeah, there's always a polarity that people are struggling with, always, and that is that's the first act of creation. Is in the beginning, consciousness, God, creator, source. It's all different words for the same thing. Separated the light from the darkness. Now, that is used to distinguish because it's the same energy. It's the same energy, but the light and the darkness were separated. So there's the potential for polarity exists, in my humble opinion, in my thoughts, from the beginning of time, from the beginning of what we could call creation, the potential for polarity. And it's all around us. It's actually, the word schizoid means to split in two. And people look around us, the red shift, one of my first video that I did on the subject called the red mirage and the blue shift, which was rampant during politics. There you have it, red versus blue. It's all over the place. I'm a composer. I see how people pit the different aspects of reality one against the other. It's this versus that, red versus blue. You're a Democrat, you're a Republican. It's everywhere. It is massive, and it's not. It creates a lot of problems because, as a composer, and this is not just because of a composer, but we actually inherit deep within our core what I call consciousness, and there's people call it the pillar of light that is in us. There is a distinction, but the creator creates equality in value. That's really important to understand. A lot of people don't understand that there is equality in value. It's obviously, it doesn't take a genius to look at the world and realize that an ant is not as powerful as the sun. It would evaporate. All of us we can't walk on the surface of the sun. It's just, that'd be it. There is a hierarchy of order in the universe, but that's the mystery is, to me anyway, the mystery is that God creates it all equal because light doesn't exist without darkness. The earth doesn't exist without fire and water. They all are needed to create this, the universe. But it really, even the word universe is a musical word. Universe, you in the verse is in you. The universe is in all of us, and we are in the universe. It's a mystery. It's mind-boggling. I don't claim to, I don't worry about the details. I think that macro, big picture, macro knowledge is what's key. We get lost in the details. There's only 9 numbers in the universe, and they just repeat themselves. It just repeats itself. You can work it out and do the math. They just repeat themselves through octaves and some people call it fractalization. Things just repeat themselves, and they grow or they get smaller to where they reach but in physics it's called the 0-point field. I think that's was coined by a physicist called Max Planck, the 0-point field, which to me, I make connections. I see the 0-point field as what's called God's rest. It's the plane, in esoteric terms, it would be called the plane of inertia, which means the plane of the unchanged.
It's funny you mentioned Planck there, because as part of the gateway experience I mentioned earlier, I don't know how familiar you are with that particular project of the Army, but there's a thing called the Monroe Institute. Basically, this gentleman named Robert Monroe, he was really big into radio in I think the 60s and 70s, but it could have been later. I might be getting that wrong.
Heard of him, and I've heard of that. Go ahead.
He came up with a thing called hemisync, where he figured out by playing different beats into your ears, your brain will pick up the difference in the frequencies, and so that's what you'll start to hear. And that if you listen to that frequency for an extended period of time, you will sync up the 2 halves of your brain, and it can help you with astral projection, meditation, that sort of thing. Well, the Army was really into it, and in the gateway.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, well, they wanted to use it for using psychics and that sort of thing. But
so they say.
They used it for decades, and they mentioned Planck because they mentioned the idea is you can get your brain activity to such a point that the distance between the crests and the troughs of the waves of your frequency is it's so tiny it will actually break through Planck's distance, or I forget what his exact term is.
Planck distance, yeah,
it's the smallest number of exactly.
It's the smallest wave it's the smallest measurement wave they call it, and that's where quantum physics comes in at and stuff. That's all it is.
And you can get to 0 point is what basically they were theorizing, is that if you get it so fast, it's almost like there is no up or down, there is no trough or wave.
Right.
And that's when they say the phrase they use is clicking out. That's when you click out.
Interesting.
Until the realm of the absolute.
Yeah. So in a sense, physics and spirituality, which they should, they're collaborating each other.
110%. And in this particular
absolutely.
In this report, actually, they have in the beginning they say this report and this information surprisingly doesn't clash with spirituality or religion at all. And there was actually a missing page 25, which they only released recently. And coincidentally, that page that was redacted is the page that says this aligns well with God and religions and spiritualities around the world. So they obviously they definitely don't want people knowing that.
Well, government, you guys probably already know. I mean, the word government literally means mind control. Govern, like a governor on an engine, to control, and mental. It literally means mind control. So I'm always a little suspicious about government, because I think we're supposed to be, as in the Bible it talks about being a priest in the manner of Melchizedek. So we're supposed to really be like our own king and queen priest. We're supposed to, marry opposites, because that's what their creator does. But I like what you mentioned about crests and troughs and the Planck field. To me, that's where a lot of us get lost, is in language. We get lost in the language. Math is a language. Music is a language. Our brains, we think figuratively. We think mathematically, symbolically, and all these are compartmentalized in us. And it's just compartmentalization. And myself, when I started making connections like the 0-point field with God's rest, the plane of inertia, which is esoteric type of language, and God's rest is in the Bible. And then there's the 0 point field or the Planck field, that's physics. I'm like, they're saying the same thing. It's just different language.
Yep, 110%.
Yeah. We get lost in language is beautiful, but it can really be divisive if it's not used and defined very precisely and articulated in a very precise manner. Mathematicians and physicists really actually don't like language too much, because the potential, that's why the math is kind of referred to a lot of times as the pure language. And it is, but even that can be distorted and used for diabolical purposes. It's like I tell people all the time, you ever hear of the atom bomb? People twist the math all the time, don't they? They twist the math all the time to sell things, to make, for their own power over somebody.
I've noticed too, especially, it just seems like it's worse and worse, is that, in particularly in the science fields and in legal fields, it seems like language, in particular jargon, is used as a barrier to keep out people and prevent uniform, clear understanding.
Yeah, well, it's systems. It's systems and groups. It's groups and systems. And to me, groups and systems can only be as pure as the individuals that are in them, because the manifestation of the individual consciousness is the contribution to everything. And that's why government, schools, religion, they're corrupted, because people's individual consciousnesses are, for the most part, corrupted. So whatever group or system is created by corrupt consciousness, it can only be corrupt.
Yeah, that's a hell of a vicious cycle.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to, the word cycle is very important. A lot of people don't understand feedback loops. It's like the family affects the neighborhood affects, the city affects the state affects the region affects the country, and back and forth, all the way to the nation affects the continent. I process things like rapid fire. It's something that some people, it's just a gift. It's called paradigm perception. It's just like I was mentioning earlier, like big picture pattern recognition. I don't sweat the details. People get lost in the details. I once told someone, I go, I'm a master of music. I understand everything that there is to know about the guitar. And the guy goes, man, he goes, that's kind of egotistical. And I said, no, it's not. I said, I didn't say I know every song. I go, but if I live a million lives, I'd learn them all, because I understand music. That comes from someone who's never mastered something. And it doesn't have to be music, it can be any field. If a person has mastered a field, whether it's music, architect, art, something that is usually abstract, you can usually appreciate someone else, and you're just like, yeah, that person's mastered their craft. You just kind of know it.
So it seems like you're really very interested into not only music, but a lot of the, I guess, what people would call the occult stuff.
Yeah.
When was there a particular thing or moment in your life where that interest started to develop and take hold?
Not that I can really pinpoint. It's kind of been there my whole life. When I was 2.5 years old, I had what I refer to as an observer moment. Some people might call it an out-of-body experience. In psychology, they call it disassociation. Yeah, got a disorder. But I had a moment where I zoomed out. I was in the bathtub, and my mom was watching me take a bath, and she was walking in and out of the room and everything. There was only a couple of inches of water in the tub, and I remember seeing the whole room, myself in the tub, they might call that a memory, but that's not what it was, because I was actually looking on to meet what I could, call my toddler self. I was looking on to the situation, and that only lasted like a split second. And when I was about when I was between 5 and 6 years old, I had constant reoccurring dreams that I was flying through. This is just a description of flying through the velvety, deep darkness of space, and there was just flickering lights everywhere. And I was just flying. Sometimes I'd be on a magic carpet, and sometimes I just would be flying. And I'd always find like gold in different places and everything, and dig up gold. I couldn't wait to go to sleep when I was 5 or 6 years old because it reoccurred, and it lasted for about a year. When I was there, I could not wait to go to sleep, and I'd have those dreams quite a bit, and then they kind of ceased. So I've been on this path a long time. I've never really adjusted well to the world, and as I can't remember who said the quote, but it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. I never fit in, and it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick world. And see, that's I was always getting in trouble in school, but see, that's because they couldn't hold my attention. Once I finally got into music, that can hold my attention. This subject can hold my attention. I can study it for hours and just making connections. It helps me to keep from going nuts in this crazy plane. And it is. Everything's happening here. I think everything's happening here on Earth. Earth is another spelling for the word heart. And Earth, to me, is the dream of the Creator. And it's the heart. It is the mind and the heart coming together. It's the dream of the Creator manifesting. I do believe that human beings are created in God's image, and nothing else is. Some people don't like that. Nothing else is. We are created in God's image, and
Amen to that.
Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
So, is there a particular is there a particular figure or author that you've been really interested in, or who's really particularly grabbed your attention?
There's one. He's not on the YouTube right now, but Mark Passio of What on Earth is Mark Passio on what on Earth is happening. He really talks a lot about sovereignty and natural law.
Gotcha. That sounds great.
He's in the consciousness, and he knows what he's talking about. He don't mess around either. He doesn't mess around.
Definitely have to check him out.
Yeah, it's Mark Passio, What on Earth is Happening.
I keep noticing that lovely statue next to you.
Yeah.
Where's that from?
I don't know. I'm at my family's house right now, so.
Gotcha. I just keep looking at it because it's gorgeous.
Yeah. I like the setting. It's cozy. Everything else is kind of like bright in here, so it was kind of cozy and warm.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a history guy, so I'm trying to figure out if it's Greek or Roman.
I think it's like Roman or Greek. Yeah, Roman, Greek, or something like that.
Well,
but I think that the good news that's talked about in the Bible, I think the good news is that we are the children of God. Now, not all of us are in tune with that. But the Creator's got all the time in the universe to recycle. Doesn't matter how long it takes. Doesn't matter. That's just my thoughts on it. That's the good news, and I do think that the creation, the foundation frequencies, broadband wave frequencies, which are referred to as the 7 days of creation, or that's the 6 days of creation, the 6 nights of creation, which the 6 nights are left out often, which night represents the female. Cold, contractive night, evening, and it's bad. It's put down, the female. But it's all distorted down here. The male is distorted too. It's the patriarchy and the matriarch, everything's vibration. Everything is vibration. Go back to the red shift and the blue mirage, and it's played against each other. Really, those things to me, this is the language thing again. Now here in this plane, the energy forces of male and female, because even the Bible says in heaven there is neither male nor female. Not in the biological sense. It's energy. It's electricity and magnetism, which is the same energy. One's inflation, one's contraction, one's expansion, one's contraction, one's inflation, one's deflation. One is rising, one is falling. It's always doing that. Constantly. I think one thing that spirituality, well, I know, spirituality and physics leaves out is the pulse of the universe. The whole universe is pulsating constantly, just like mine and yours heart and our lungs, which are, to me, the heart and lungs are really kind of like substations or subfrequencies. The whole universe is expanding and contracting. And as the energy moves away from the 0 point, it is actually slowing up and becoming more dense. And as the frequencies ripple out, they're becoming slower and longer. The red shift in physics is a long wave. And as things move back towards center, the frequency speeds up because the wave starts collapsing. That's what most people don't want to experience in life. I've experienced the total collapse of what people would call the ego and everything. Near-death experience.
It goes back to everything being cyclical, yeah. People don't want to get to the end because they think the end's the end. But the end is another beginning in a way.
Well, there's the duality again. Construction, destruction. But destruction is construction. There is no... Death is an illusion. Death is an illusion that we've been taught, man, we see photographs of ourselves and from the time we're little and we start looking in the mirror, which is a reflection in an image of our eyes, which is actually a delayed response. It's not my opinion, that's real physics. By time light bounces off your occipital cortex, it takes about a millisecond. Think of all the things and realities in that millisecond. People I say, that's not much of a time. Well, just ask a man, Olympic runner, that got bronze or silver. It's like, well, you lost by, man, 100th of a millisecond. It's huge.
It also reminds me a lot of how it's worded in the Tao Te Ching. I always mess that one up. But that one, it's the idea that things are only, you can only understand something in reference to its opposite a lot of the time. So tall doesn't mean anything if you don't have short to put into perspective or comparison. You need both things to exist in order to even have an opposite in the first place.
Right. That's how I see things. That's why I'm not into, I really get annoyed about with the higher vibration crowd. They don't know what they're talking about. They're virtual signaling. I really hammered on that on my video I did. They're virtual signaling. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. A higher vibration. I'm a composer. You can't have a higher vibration without a lower one. It doesn't exist. You have to have, before you have a higher vibration, you have to have the vibration start somewhere. And see, that's all that duality, the lower, higher, they're virtual signaling. It's just like someone, I ran across someone in my recent past that had 1111 on all their fingers. And I asked them what it meant. They didn't have a clue. I told them, I go, 1111, I go, that's simple. I go, that represents the two pillars of creation. I said, you could look at it as a negative charge and a positive charge. Or if you flip it, 11, if you flip it over horizontally, it's an equal sign. It's not complicated. 11, L, even. Harmony everywhere. L, even, electrical, even.
And if you follow the numerology rule for 11, that makes it 2. So once again, duality. Right back to it.
Sure. Well, that's why I was saying a little bit earlier, numbers just repeat themselves. 10 is just 1. Yeah, 12 is 3. 12 is 3.
You know, you mentioned that, and it's funny because I'm not sure if you knew about this little trick. I don't really know what this means, but it exists. I think it means something that's cool. I learned about this thing called theosophic addition. And you get the theosophic value of a number by adding up all the numbers leading up to it. And what's interesting is starting at number 4, if you add up the numbers leading up to 4, you get 10. And every 3 numbers after the number 4, whatever number that is, it'll always add up back to 10. So 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, onward and onward. It'll always end up, if you add up all the numbers adding up to it, it'll always end up being 10. Starting at
That's interesting. 4. Thanks for sharing that. I'm not familiar with that, but there's no surprise. Because if you add up the numbers, anything past 9, no matter how high you go up, no matter how far you go, if you add I believe it's called gematria. If you add numbers horizontally, you'll never go past 9.
And when you think about that,
never.
You see, all right, the Pythagoreans were really onto something, man. I can understand why they like the numbers in general, and 9 and 10.
Sure, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. 666 don't scare me at all. People say, oh, the Illuminati, they're using that stuff. There are no harmful or scary numbers. They're beautiful. They don't want you to know. They want people to be symbolically literate. If we view numbers as only numbers, it will make us numb.
And nobody appreciates math nowadays, unfortunately, because they just think of it as just the numbers, not the symbol, not what it represents, not what it could be used for.
Right. People are symbol illiterate. Our ancient ancestors thought in symbols. And symbols are are actually storehouses of knowledge. That's why they didn't talk a lot. That's why people didn't talk a lot. They didn't have to. One symbol could be a book this thick and tell a story, one symbol. That's why people didn't talk as much. They didn't have to. Talking actually is, people don't realize this simple physics test. And I'm not putting talking or writing or spelling, I'm not putting it down because everything has its place. But actually writing and talking are actually very retarded forms of communication. And I've used the word retarded in the sense of what it really means, slow. An example, it's real simple. Just say the word Mississippi. How long did it take you to say it? 1 second. Mississippi, 1 second. Spell it out. It'll probably take you about 3 or 4 seconds if you're a fast writer to spell it. How long did it take you to think? Split second.
Or if you showed somebody a map, even, it was familiar with it. All you need to do is just see the shape of it, and you would immediately recognize it.
Well, maps are actually just, they help some people navigate. I talk a lot about that when it's in one of my music videos, about people, whether or not people who are interested in taking up the guitar will find their own voice. And I don't pull any punches. Most people will not find their own style. And the reason why is because of maps. Because we're told how to think, where to go, when it's all mapped out. If you look at a map 1,000 years ago, it wasn't that delineated, was it? Yeah, there's lines everywhere. It's illusion. Lines are an illusion. They help. I don't know where we'd be without them, but think about it for a second. It's an illusion. There's no such place as like Missouri where I live. There's not a hunk of, doesn't exist. We are so compartmentalized. It is, to me, it's off the charts. It's just off the charts.
I guess it's an unfortunate byproduct of trying to stay sane in this wacko world.
Yeah. But I just I think that a lot of us we get lost in things have been energy is genderized. It is zoomorphized and anthropomorphized. So some people need, I don't know where we'd be without all the things that we've done, but it's, in a sense, it's time to see them, but also at the same time let them go. Because I'm just so big on everything just being energy and waves. Macro knowledge. Can I show you guys something? Is it okay?
Yeah, of course. Because
people think a lot, this is abstract. The music is abstract, as it's off the charts, it's so abstract. And most people need a picture. I drew this, and this is what the serpent. Isn't it interesting too that the word serpent has 7 letters in it?
I never noticed that.
Yeah. No, I make a lot of connections. There's the wave. There's the serpent. The serpent's not evil, it's the wave. And you could also put it this way. There's the 6 days and 6 nights of creation. Or you could put it this way. We need to think in all directions. There's the 6 days and 6 nights. There's your rise and fall. There's your male and female.
It reminds me too of the the caduceus, the 2 snacks, or even DNA. Honestly, it's reminiscent of that too when you put it vertically.
Sure, good. Thank you for contributing. I like that, man. It's helps me to. But there it is, right there. In the 7th, there's the 7 keys of God's kingdom. Those are macro systems. They're waves. They're just like in physics. May I show another picture? They're waves. These aren't really great pictures, but that's physics. That's real physics. You got 6 invisible waves and 6 visible. Now I know some people might say, "Hey, you left indigo out." Well, if they did some, and they might get their feelings hurt. Well, do some research. Indigo is a sub-frequency. Some people might not like to hear that, but they need to do some research. I've done my research. There's only 6 primary waves in physics. But 6 visible and 6 invisible. And isn't it interesting? The visible start at about the violet and the infrared, the violet, and our blood just happens to be kind of bluish, kind of purplish red. No accidents. No accidents. And here's another thing I like to share. I shared this on my video because 6 is a beautiful number. 6 is a beautiful number. Just things, I like to draw things out. We're tissue, right? We're organs and we're flesh. Well, this is just a connection I made. But it's physics. But notice how it follows the number 6. And what are organs, tissue, and flesh made out of? Cells. And what are cells made out of? This isn't my opinion. Molecules. What are molecules made out of? Atoms. What are atoms made out of? Protons, neutrons, and electrons. What are protons, neutrons, and electrons made out of? That's the quantum world. What they call quarks. And it's just an accident that there's a up quark and a down quark. And isn't it interesting? There's a proton and a neutron. There's what they're really, you know what these things are? What do you think these things are? Well, it's you. It's how you got here.
Seems
the waves.
Waves, frequency, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier.
And light.
These are crests of a wave. That's how I see it. These are crests of waves. Some people might call it timelines. And everybody has their own timeline because in my thoughts, we are a collection of waves, and then there's all kinds of sub-frequencies. It's beyond the average person's scope. I mean, that's why I mentioned, I believe there's been a lot of talk over the last 10 years about twin flames. Now, it appears to me that the universe works in twos. From the start, God separated the light from the darkness. Consciousness separated the light from the darkness. So it does appear that there is some validity to that, but it's a whole nother matter that somebody out there knows who your twin flame is. I think that's confirmation bias, and those people are looking for, and it's insane. And the reason I say that, nobody could figure out all those frequencies. Nobody. One human body. Now, granted, I'm using the words, I see them as frequencies, but one, according to physics, and the greatest physicists in the world are just guessing, but they can kind of, they know how many atoms are in like a liter of water and how much water is in a human body. One human body has 10 to the 27 atoms in it. Nobody can, and somebody's going to tell you who your twin flame is? You can figure all that out? That's just atoms. And there's like 10 to the 22 stars. I mean, these numbers are staggering. That's why I don't get lost. People can't get lost in the details. You have to understand macro systems like this, macro knowledge. Everything else is just sub-frequencies. If you don't have big picture pattern recognition, it's not hopeless, but wow, you're lost. You're lost. You're gone. Because each key of the kingdom is like a floor on an elevator in an apartment store. Things are always coming in and out. There's always new things coming in and out. You could be lost forever in one key. And that's actually a musical thing too. You could play in one key. You could draw art to get away from music. You could draw with one color and make different shapes for the rest of you, for eternity, and come up with different patterns. So it's really easy to get lost. And there's a lot of people who don't understand how the macro systems work, and they're looking at all the details. I'm very leery when people start getting in the details too much. I'm like, I'm just leery. I'll just leave it at that. I'm just really leery. Get really leery of that stuff. You know, what are they selling? You know, follow the money or something. Because what I do, man, I take care of myself. I try to teach some lessons here when I can, and I mow lawns. So, you know, I'm not selling any books or anything like that.
There are definitely a lot of grifters out there right now, unfortunately. So I too am very suspect of whenever somebody says, I have the secret, and yeah, I'll totally give it to you, I just need some money from you first. That's like, well, then you obviously don't know the secret. Because if you knew the secret, you would know that you don't charge for something like that. Yeah, and we're all sharing in this loaf. We're all sharing. It's just a share. See, we don't all play fair down here. It's definitely, we don't play fair. It's very obvious. It's very obvious. I wanted to talk to, do we still have some more time? Yeah, we've got a little bit more time. We've got another podcast at like 4. So
okay.
we've got at least like another like 10 minutes. We'll
okay.
To wrap it up.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the baptism of water, the baptism of fire, and the baptism of spirit, because I'm all about understanding the macro. First of all, the baptism of water. Water to me represents the female. And that would be immersed in understanding and harmonizing the female or the magnetic aspect of life, creation. And the baptism of fire, and this is what I think I'm going to explain what twin flames really, in my opinion, are. It's not a romantic relationship that people think. The baptism of fire is to immerse yourself in the knowledge of the male principle, expansion, and those things. The baptism of the Spirit, and even in the Bible it says the baptism of the Spirit is the greatest baptism of them all. Why? Because when you're baptized in the Spirit, you marry all opposites. That's why the baptism of Spirit is greater. You got to have the baptism of those other two, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and then you can perhaps make that transition to the baptism of Spirit, where the duality and the red shift and the blue shift and all this, you know, higher vibrational, right? It becomes nonsense. It's just, it just becomes, nonsense. Go ahead.
Oh, I definitely agree with the baptism of water being related to the female. And just when you said that, it made me think it's very interesting that Earth, I guess, is a female element traditionally, usually, but I think water is, in a lot of people's minds, the quintessential female sign.
It is. I agree.
Force. And it's funny that
but remember, they say, Mother Earth, Gaia, but there's masculine aspect. It's just the masculine. It's when you think of, I'm just sharing with you what the spirit and the sources share with me, is when you see something that's male, there is a female aspect to it. It may not be visible. When something is female, like the Earth, because believe me, there's plenty of Earth, masculine energy on Earth. Ever hear of a volcano?
Yeah.
The fire is considered masculine. Plenty of volcanoes on Earth, aren't there? It's all here. See, we split. We're torn. I want to mention too about the cross. The cross that is the symbol in Christianity is not a true cross. It's a T. That's why it's 1/3 off. There's a reason for that. It's 1/3 off. A third of heaven fell to create form. Everything to me is energy and archetypes. I don't believe in demons. I believe that people are demonic. Demon, literally the word demon means not one. Like debased or debunked or decomposed. It means not, if you're decomposed, you're not composed. Demonic, literally, it's a verb. And the same with aliens. I don't believe in fallen angels. I believe in fallen energy. I believe in fallen consciousness. And which is I think, too, one thing I want to mention before we tie things up, and I got some other things if I'm not keeping track of time here, but to understand fire and water, most of us are concerned about, we're very analytical, and that's beautiful and good, left brain, but a lot of us are concerned about the properties. What is something made out of? But what about the effects? What about the effects of fire and water? What are the effects? What are the effects of fire and water?
Well, traditionally with fire, I think most people think of the effect of fire as the destructive part. It destroys things, it burns things. But really, it's funny because if you look at, I think the biggest point in history you could make with fire, it was primarily constructive, because because a lot of different theories point to varying levels of importance, but everybody agrees that being able to have fire and to start cooking food was a huge step in our evolution, our history, whatever you want to call it. So that's just funny that I just think of. You think of it as being primarily destructive. Fire is a destructive force, but then you have campfires, being around the fireplace on a snowy day, the beginning of civilization and cooking. All those things are constructive. So
I mean,
here's what go ahead.
Even when you look at forest fires, a lot of the time the purpose of that is it's burning away the dead wood and all the brush and everything, so everything can regrow once again. So it's like that, again, back to that duality where it's like you have to have the destruction in order to have the construction, or the rebirth, death and rebirth.
Sure, it's everywhere. What I was thinking, gentlemen, was, and take this with you and share this with as many people as you can, because this is huge. The effects of fire and water are, very few people talk about this. Fire and water create images and reflections. Where do we get the word narcissism from? Image. You see a reflection. Fire and water create images. And to keep it simple, it's very abstract, but I think that has a lot to do with how consciousness lost its way. Because if you were born, if you created, and from the time you got in, you've seen a mirror, and you've just seen mirrors. See what I'm saying? It's a mirroring thing. Fire and water create images and reflections. And that has a lot to do, and we're made out of fire and water. And from the time we're born, we see an image of ourselves and we think, oh, that's me. It's crazy, but what I just shared with you is huge. It's huge. Images, reflections, and shadows. Yeah, fire and water, those are the effects of fire and water, not necessarily the properties of fire and water.
Interesting.
Yeah, meditate on that one.
Definitely.
It happens from the time, and I think it goes back to the beginning of creation. And people who have reached the 0 point or have, aha moments, there's a lot of words for them, have been able to cut through all that and reestablish, which it's never been lost, reestablish that connection with source. Because it can't be destroyed. And it can't be destroyed. It can be the 7 keys of the kingdom. There's a vibration word. The 6 days, 6 nights, they're all waves. Wave, ray, and day are all the same thing. Don't get lost in the details. The word day comes from the Hebrew word yam, Y-O-M, which just means a contrast between light and darkness. Imagine that. So these things are just, that is the crystal grid, what some people call the crystal grid. To me, that's the crystal grid. It can't be destroyed. It can be manipulated and all kinds of diabolical things, but it's happening. But that crystal grid, which clear Christ, the Christ grid, the clear, it can't be destroyed. And that to me is a beautiful thing. And we can always align ourselves and get in tune with the 7 keys of God's kingdom. Or more people are more familiar with the 6 days and the 6 nights, which happen 6 and 6 add up to be 12. And 12's all over the place. Not telling you guys anything. 12's all over the place. Yeah, beautiful number. It's all over the place. And there's 12 rungs to Jacob's ladder. See, those rungs are, and there's a vibration word, rung, like a bell rung, ring, ring. You get caught in a loop. Remember I was saying earlier, you get stuck on one key. Have you ever heard of circular thinking? Yeah, make the connections, keep making the connections. This stuff it's intricate, but it's not complicated. It's just the waters have been muddied up so bad through compartmentalization and schizophrenic. Think of, I had something here, but I don't know where it's at. I know you guys can visualize it though in your audience. Think of the yin and yang sign. Okay, duality. Okay, then think of a triangle. Then think of a cube. Then think of the 5-pointed star. Think of the Star of David. Now picture those steps, and see there's 6 there. It's everywhere. It's beautiful. But think of those things as psychology. Now imagine people, what happens, and I talked about this in the video that I did. Think of what happens when people bring duality or triangulation to their relationships. Not very healthy, is it? Kind of messes things up, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah. And we do that all over the place. Like I was mentioning earlier, the red mirage, the blue shift. It's this, we split, follow it. Consciousness, we're actually supposed to dance and play like a composer. I use all the strings. I use all the vibrations. I move up and down that fretboard. But I just dance on that fretboard. See, we're supposed to be able to do that. We're not supposed to get stuck on one rung. We're not supposed to be stuck on one key. We're supposed to be aligned with all that and just and clear, so we're clear. It's really simple to me.
But yeah, I do like the metaphor with aligning it and the keys, and I do. I think it's very interesting. The keys, the language applies in a bunch of different fields, and it's all equally meaningful in the different metaphors.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah, it's wonderful. Go.
But I just wanted to wrap things up here.
Okay.
So I wanted
Sure.
to give. So first of all, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And
I appreciate it.
We're super happy that, and we want to encourage people to go on there, go onto our website. We'll be adding more stuff, and if you guys want to try to be on with us, if you want to just have a conversation, if you have good ideas, anything like that. And then we also wanted to make sure Roger here has a website. So Roger, if you wanted to tell everybody what you have to offer and where to go to check out all your stuff.
Well, they can go to my website, Roger Klosterman, ROGERKLOSTERMAN.com. My music's there. They can download it for free. I offer my music for free. Or they can go to YouTube. Just type in my name. Awesome. I'm all over the place. I'm easy to find.
And if you had one piece of advice or a message that you wanted to give to our audience, what would you want to say to them?
Don't get stuck. Try your best not to get stuck. So I think that's what happens to a lot of us. Just like I mentioned a few minutes ago and I think I kind of saw some lights come on when I said, well, talking about the ring, circular thinking, wrong, and you get stuck on one wrong. It's easy to do. It's easy to do. I can't even emphasize it enough to people that might be listening. And it's so easy to do. You get stuck in one key forever. It's huge. Kind of could be a little intimidating to people sometimes. But Albert Einstein used the analogy of an elevator to explain the universe. If you think of it as an apartment store, all the things are constantly coming in and out, new shipments, things coming in and out. You shop around forever. It's all good though. It all works out.
Well, thank you. I think that is a great message for people. Not to, because when you get stuck, that's when you start to deteriorate. You start to decay, and you gotta keep it moving.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you again for joining us. We're really happy to have you.
All right.
And hopefully we'll talk soon, and we get to do this again sometime.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, because I got some more information. I'm sure you guys have some more too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and best of luck to you with everything, and hope you do well.
Well, wellness, wholeness, and harmony vibrations to you guys. End of transmission. Over and out.
All right, over and out.